Welcome to the Forefront Radio. Welcome to the Forefront Radio. We're back again for another episode of You Reap What You Sow. You reap what you sow. Very interesting conversation we've had on the previous live streams that we've broadcast here on the Forefront Radio. You can follow us on iHeartRadio. You can follow us on Spotify. You can follow us on YouTube, the Forefront Radio 2.0 on YouTube, and the Forefront Radio on your streaming platforms. We talk about history. We talk about Black history according to the Bible. And what we do is we parallel the Bible with historical sources, documentaries, and various other things to learn the truth that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, that you are the lost tribes of Israel according to the Bible. Now, this is a very important topic due to the fact that there are people that are scattered all over the planet who don't know their identity, don't know their culture. They have just been attached to misnomers. Misnomers like African, Afro-Asiatic, FBA, ADOS, African American, and various other misnomers that do not apply to who they truly are. So do me a favor, y'all, share the room with at least 10 people, and let's get into another exciting discussion on the Forefront Radio. Follow us on all our streaming platforms as well. So take a moment to share the live, and I'll be with you in just a moment. All right, y'all, let's get started with our discussion. First, we're going to talk about slavery in China. We're going to talk about slavery in China because a lot of times when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade, the trans-Pacific slave trade, we verily don't take an opportunity to talk about the history of captivity of our people and the living conditions that they experience in the continent of Africa and in Asia. A lot of times we just talk about what happened to our people in America, Mexico, South America, Caribbean islands, but rarely, if at all, do we talk about slavery in China. Let's get to it. This is slavery in China, according to Wikipedia, was taking various forms throughout history. Slavery was nominally, meaning by name, abolished in 1910. 1910 was when slavery was officially abolished, although the practice continued even as late as 1950. 1950. Who do you think they observed to be enslaved persons in China, in Asia? Who do you think that they want to become slaves? Watch this. The Chinese term for slave is nuli. Nuli. N-U-L-I. Now, what did they call black people in China? Kunluni. Kunlun. Kunlun nuli. Kunlun slave. They also called us Zangji, based on the Arabic term Zanj, which derives from the Haitian Creole term angels or ange. They enslaved the people that they called Nuli or Zanj or Zangji. Now, this history information, although it's readily available, many of our people are not aware of it. They're not aware of it at all. For example, in the Qing dynasty and the Tang dynasty, slavery expanded beyond just taking criminals as debt slavers and enslaving them. The slavery expanded beyond criminals and war captives. The Qing dynasty used a large-scale slave labor for public works, such as land reclamation, road construction, and canal building. Who do you think they were taking to do that? Black folks. Black folks, you are the ones that built the Great Wall of China in construction. In construction. In construction. Now, does this parallel the Bible? Let's find out. Let's go to Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. And let's start at verse 13. It says, "And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick." In mortar and in brick. When it says mortar and brick, what is that going into? That's going into cement and bricks, aka what? Construction, construction, construction. When you examine the Americas, who did they establish to build the railroads? Who did they establish to build the Capitol buildings? Black people, Hispanic people, Latinos, Native Indigenous. You were the ones utilized to do that. And it was the same thing during the Qing dynasty, the Tang dynasty in Asia, in China. Watch this. Let's go back. The Qing used large-scale slave labor for public works such as land reclamation, road construction, canal building. Slavery declined during the economic boom of the Song dynasty. In the 12th century, advances in fertilizer, hydraulic, agricultural technologies allowed the plantation of commercial crops such as medicinal herbs, mulberry, and cotton, and cotton, and cotton. Who do you think was the ones picking the cotton in Asia, y'all? Who do you think was the ones picking the cotton in Asia? Hello. These nations all had a part, because when we have the discussion about reparations, we only limit it to America. No, 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 no. When we have the discussion about reparations, we only limit it to Great Britain. No, 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 no. It was a global trade system. All of these nations had a part in our captivity. Guess what? The Chinese, they are known as the Moabites of the Bible. And since biblical times, they've always had beef with our people. Always. Just like the Ishmaelite Arabs, just like the Edomite Europeans. These nations have always not had your best interests at heart, black man, black woman, Hispanic man, Hispanic women. Listen close. It says, in the 19th century, due to concerted efforts to end the African slave trade, large numbers of Chinese laborers known as coolies were exported to replace slave labor. Meaning what? They got the descendants of those that they took captives in Asia that intermingled with the Chinese and brought them over to the Americas to work. Watch this. They were transported in cargo ships with conditions and practices identical to former African slave trade. Now watch this. Does the Bible talk about the children of Israel going into captivity on ships? The answer is yes. Let's go to the book of Job, chapter 9. Let's go to Job, chapter 9, verse 26. It says, "They are passed away as the swift ships, as the eagle that hasteth to the prey." What is the symbol of the United States of America? The eagle. And how did black and brown people from Haiti, from Puerto Rico, from Jamaica, from Congo, from Tanzania, how did they get transported all across the world? How did they get taken into China as slaves? On ships, on ships, on ships. Watch this. Visitors to the late 19th century China found little difference between the poor, free, and the slaves, both of which were treated as hired laborers. You see that? A handful of emperors, shalom, so you hope you're doing well. A handful of emperors officially throughout Chinese history made efforts to limit or outlaw slavery. None were successful, meaning what? They continued the slave trade in China to this day, from the BC era all the way to the AD era, from the BCE era, from the BC to the BCE, up until now. Slavery wasn't abolished in China officially up until 1950. 1950. 1950. So, from the Qing Dynasty, which is 221 to 206 BC, to the Han Dynasty, to the Ming Dynasty, to medieval times, right? All the way to today, captivity has been happening. So now many people are not aware of what's called the Silk Road slave trade. Many people are unaware of the Silk Road slave trade, where people were taken, black people were taken from the Middle East and taken as far as Ireland, all the way to Shandong, China, as enslaved persons. And this parallels the prophecies of the lost tribes of Israel according to the Bible. According to the Bible. Watch this. Let's go to Slavery by Non-Han Chinese. In 1019, Jurchen pirates raided Japan for slaves. Only 270 of the Japanese on 8 ships were returned when Goryeo managed to intercept them. The Jurchen pirates slaughtered the Japanese men while seizing Japanese women as prisoners. So now, here's something that's worthy of note. The people that they took as enslaved persons in Japan, they were known as Kaifang Jews. Kaifang Jews. These were Israelites taken into captivity, known as Kaifang Jews. Y'all, there's so much information about our people taken into captivity. It's beyond belief. It's beyond belief. Let's look at Wikipedia about Kaifang Jews. Kaifang Jews, Kaifang Yutaren, or Yahudat Kaifang, are a small community of descendants of Chinese and Japanese Jews in Kaifang in the Hainan province of China. In the early centuries of their settlement, they were numbered around 2,500 people. Despite their isolation from the rest of the Jewish diaspora, their ancestors managed to practice Israelite traditions and customs for several centuries. Wow. So why are we never taught during Black History Month that a group of black folks that were taken into captivity were called Kaifang Jews? Things that make you go, why is it when it comes to the slavery in China and Asia, we never hear about black people taken into Shalom, so you hope you're doing well. We never hear about black people taken into slavery in China. It's very important to understand this, y'all. Very important to understand this, y'all. Let's go real quick to another slave trade through the Silk Road with slavery in Asia. Let's go to the Bukhara slave trade. The Bukhara slave trade refers to the historical slave trade conducted in the city of Bukhara in Central Asia, present-day Uzbekistan. So remember when I told you that all nations had a part in our captivity? I wasn't making it up. Even in little nations like Uzbekistan, they had slavery going on. Now watch this. from antiquity until the 19th century. Bukhara and nearby Khiva were known as the major centers of the slave trade in Central Asia for centuries, until the completion of the Russian conquest of Central Asia in the late 19th century. So why was we never taught this in Black History Month? Why were we never taught this information? It's very important to understand the history of our people outside of America. Now, the city of Bukhara was an important trade center along the ancient Silk Road, through which slaves were traded between Europe and Asia. Now, question for the critical thinker. Who do you think was the ones they placed in captivity from Europe all the way to Asia? Let's find out what the Bible says. Let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 21. Luke, chapter 21, verse 24. Luke chapter 21, verse 24. And they, referring to the Israelites, shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Into all nations. Wait a minute. So the Bible is saying that so-called black, so-called Hispanic, so-called Native Indigenous, you are the ones that got taken all the way from where? From Europe all the way to Asia. Now let's go back to the Wikipedia article again. The city of Bukhara, this is under Bukhara slave trade in Uzbekistan in Central Asia. The city of Bukhara was an important trade center along the ancient Silk Road, through which slaves were traded between Europe and Asia. Wow. So they never tell us that in Central Asia, in places like China, in places like Uzbekistan, that they had individuals as enslaved persons, and they were the descendants of the sons and daughters of Jacob. In the Middle Ages, Bukhara came to lie in the religious border zone between the Muslim and non-Muslim world, which was seen as a legitimate target of slavery by Muslims, and referred to the Eastern Dome of Islam. It became the center of the massive slave trade of the Samanid Empire. Y'all hear that? Who brought people from Europe, black people from Europe, as slaves and sold them in the Middle East. You understand? They also had non-Muslim slaves from Central Asia and the Middle East and India, where they composed the main ethnicity of the Gilman, which was the military slaves, for centuries. In the early modern age, the contemporaries Emirat of the Bukhara met competition in the slave trade with the nearby Khanate of Khiva, but continued to function as a major slave trade center for non-Muslim, aka black, slaves to Central Asia and the Middle East. This is an important part of our conversation because a lot of times when we ask people, what is the description of the Jews in the Bible? People say Middle Eastern. And then I ask the question, was there black people in the Middle East? Yes or no? All of a sudden they're confused. All of a sudden they're like, huh? Black people in the Middle East? I thought it was only Arabs there. No, there were black people in the Middle East that were taken as enslaved persons. They were the people of the book. They were the people of the book, and they intermingled themselves amongst these nations. That's why you got brown people that are Israelites, black people that are Israelites, light-skinned people that are Israelites. But these religious converts that say that they're Jews and are not, they're not Hebrew. They are religious converts. But now they took over the Afro-Hebraic religion and said, nobody else can be a Jew but European folks. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. You see, a black person could say they're a Muslim, nobody don't give a damn. A black person could say they're Christian, nobody don't give a damn. But as soon as you say, we are God's chosen people, guess what? Everybody loses their mind. Everybody goes crazy. Because this would prove that black history is in the Bible. This would prove that God's chosen people are the same people that you call Hispanic, Latino, Native Indigenous, Aboriginal, Black, Negro, Moreno, African, Afro-Asiatic, ADOS. These are the sons and daughters of God. So why do we not learn about the Silk Road slave trade during Black History Month? Why do we never hear about the Bukhara slave trade in Central Asia? Why do we not hear about the Indian Ocean slave trade? It's because they want to hide it from you. Remember, the Bible says you're going to know the truth, and the truth is going to make you free. They don't want you to acquire freedom. The global elite wants to have you in La La Land. That's why it's very important to study, because the Bible says you're going to know the truth, and the truth is going to make you free. Thank you for listening to the Forefront Radio. I pray this discussion was rewarding for you all. Remember to follow the Forefront Radio on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, and many other platforms. With that, we say shalom.